The Space Wolves, a chapter of Space Marines so brand-aligned they may as well have been invented by a PR company. Space Wolves, Wolfguard, Thunder Wolves, Great Wolf, Wolfen, Wolf, Wolf, Wolf. Their brand alignment is unmatched by anyone but the Iron Hands. But brand alignment does not a sensible chapter make. So let's dig into these Space Wolves and explain just why they are the biggest waste of gene seed in the entire Imperium. This is part of a series I like to call
I'm insulting your army till you remember it's funny. 40k is satire.
So far we've insulted the tactically inept, traitorous Dark Angels and the dumber than an orc White Scars. Make sure to check those videos out after this. Now, let's insult the hell, with one L, out of these so-called Space Wolves. Let's be clear, Viking Space Marines, a damn cool idea. Yes, history nerds, I know Vikinger was a verb, not a noun. I've watched Dr. Jackson Crawford too, but we're going with a common definition for this. Keep your nerd credentials in your pants. But, as Pancreas No Work correctly points out, these are no Vikings. Hell, they're not even wolves. We all know that there are no wolves on Fenris. Wait, no wolves on Fenris? I've worked it out. The books have hinted at it, but I've got the missing puzzle piece. I won't go into it here. The Imperial Fist video will have to wait a bit longer. For the next one, we'll be exposing the greatest conspiracy in all of 40k. Bar none. I promise you've not heard this before, so you better get subscribed to catch that one. But for now, we're insulting the greatest waste of gene seed in the Imperium. Now, I admit that is a bold claim. The Space Wolves, the Emperor's Executioners, one of the first founding chapters and the sons of the Primarch Leman Russ are, somehow, the greatest waste of gene seed in the Imperium. Surely not. But it's true. Let me elaborate. Whilst the Space Wolves are unlike other Space Marine chapters in many, many stupid ways, they still, fundamentally, rely on gene seed to be able to make more Space Wolves. Gene seed is, essentially, the lifeblood of the chapter. Without it, there is no more chapter. Even more so for the Wolves because of complex Canis Helix reasons, we'll go into that later, meaning that they don't have successor chapters with the same gene seed that they can borrow from. Well, until Belisarius Cawl waved his magic gene wand, try get that image out of your head. Now, Space Marines get as much action with the opposite gender as your average Space Wolf player does, which is to say, none. Not least because of the smell, from both the Marines and the players, which puts potential mates off, making gene seed all important to Space Marines. The gene seed is derived from two progeny glands that all Space Marines are implanted with. These are the only two that any Marine will ever get, and the only way of reproducing Marines. The first can be harvested after 5 years, the second after 10, but is often done at death. This, by the way, is bloody stupid, so remind me to make a video of how stupid it is another time. Given all that, you may think that the Space Wolves would be super careful about making sure their Marines were safe until they get those glands removed. If you do think that, you're giving the Space Wolves far, far too much credit. Remember, your average Spaniel is about 10 times smarter than these guys. Most chapters have young Marines who haven't fully completed the upgrade process act as scouts, keeping them away from the main fighting and using them to, well, scout. They also heavily train these would-be Marines. Once they're full Marines, they're still held back as devastators, using heavy weapons to keep them from being directly on the front lines, so they can learn the ropes, because most Marines like not to have their chapter wiped out. The Space Wolves, though, they do none of this. They're chucked straight into Bloodclaws packs before they're even fully augmented. Do Bloodclaws packs hang back, keeping those progeny glands safe? Do they balls? They're given a chainsword and a bolt pistol and told to go nuts chopping at anything that moves. World Eaters? Chop. Death Guard? Chop. Striking Scorpions? Chop, chop, chop. Why care about the long-term survival of the chapter when you can have the untrained prove their worth by fist-fighting a hellbrute? As for training, hell no. Why bother? In the Blood of Assaheim book, we learn that rather than train neophytes with droids and machines, they just send them out to, and I quote, Learn the skills in real combat, or they die. Quick reminder, these progenoid glands are harvested at 5 and 10 years. They used 1 to make this marine. If they die before 5 years, they can't be replaced, and if before 10, they can't get a second to replace any that died without being harvested. They're saying they choose to waste gene seed, send them out untrained, in squads composed only of the untrained, against deadly foes, and hope that they get good. And if they're saying they choose to waste gene seed, who am I to second guess them? They're a waste of gene seed. But wait, that waste of gene seed gets worse. Remember that Canis helix I mentioned? Well, it's a curse on the space wolves that means that they mutate into what a normal person would describe as a werewolf when they receive the first part of the gene seed. From drinking from the cup of Wolfen, because what else would the PR-aligned Marines call it? Well, those that don't die taking it anyway, which is a lot of them. They then take these gene-seeded monsters a huge distance away from their home, known as the Fang, because of course it is, and drop them off. The monsters have to get back without going fully bestial. Those few that do are then given the rest of the gene seed that stabilises them, which means that they could stabilise these beasts immediately after they drink from the cup, if they so wished, but choose to let a bunch of would-be Marines, who have had the first of the gene seed steps, turn into mindless beasts. Honestly, I can't help but think they're just sitting in the Fang, dreaming up ways that they can waste gene seed at this point. Well, that and other things that they can give wolfy names to anyway. Of course, this waste of gene seed is not the only reason that they're utterly bloody stupid. Spoilers for the Asserheim trilogy of books incoming. A trilogy that I went into with low expectations, but ended up being really good. I'd recommend them. But you're not here to watch me glaze a buck. You're here for me to insult the Space Wolves. The Space Wolf codexes claim that for a Space Wolf there is nothing better than fighting battle after battle. They hunger for it. They yearn for it. It's in their blood. And yet, the codex is talking out of its arse. Well, it would be talking out of its arse if it had one, but saying it's talking out of its spine just sounds stupid. Meet Jorunda, a very grumpy old grey hunter who loves nothing more than tinkering with his Thunderhawk and complaining. A lot of complaining. When being told it's time to go to war, he says, and again I am quoting, "Everyone is tired, Blade Master. If they keep sending us out year after year with no chance to breathe or retrain, or remember what we are doing, we will be more than tired. We'll be dead." Oh, the poor little puppy. Instead of sitting around the Fang, drinking and feasting, in the grim darkness of the far future, where I'm reliably informed there is only war, he has to go to war year after year. Does nobody think of the Space Marines and what they have to go through? Funny he mentions training. Firstly, for how they don't train their blood claws, and secondly, for how this is the same pack that sent Halfoy, one of the pack members, on a zero-G mission of importance. How much training in zero-G has he had? The same amount as I have. They could have sent someone with training, but why bother? Remember, the chapter ethos: learn the skills in real combat, or they die. Now, the Space Wolves and Dark Angels hate each other, which is ironic, given how both are exceedingly focused on keeping secrets, in a manner that will get their own side killed. At least the Dark Angels try to make excuses for it. The Space Wolves, they don't even bother. Halfoy, on that zero-G mission, hadn't even been briefed on what the space station that they were going to was like. He didn't know entry routes, exit routes, how many rooms there were, potential enemies, targets, whether there was a kettle available to make some tea. Nothing. They just sent him in blind. And worst of all, they sent him in tealess. The main arc of the Asserheim trilogy focuses on a secret that the least Space Wolfy Space Wolf, Ingvar, uncovers that seems to threaten high-ranking Space Wolves. He tells his Varangai, the Wolf Guard pack leader Gunlauger, when Space Wolf High Command, in the shape of Najal Stormcaller, turns up. Do they mention it to him? Or do they keep it a secret? When Balder, another of the pack, is getting massive headaches and feeling sick, whilst battling the forces of Nurgle, does he tell anyone, or keep it secret? They keep secrets. They keep so many secrets that even a Dark Angel would start to feel that maybe this is a bit too much. Hell, later Najal asks why he didn't tell anyone, and Balder basically says, "Why would I tell anyone I was getting sick while fighting Nurgle?" And Najal essentially shrugs his shoulder and says, "Fair point." I don't even need to point out why this is some of the most stupid shit in the entire 40k universe. They know what Nurgle is. They know what Nurgle does. Yet they all agree that a Marine shouldn't report symptoms of sickness whilst fighting Nurgle. How are they not all chaos worshipping now? Actually, I'm pretty sure they are. So expect that video shortly too. When millions of Nurgle followers are outside of the city, where are the wolves? Well, 2 of them are injured because Gunnlauga's pride, including one who is probably a minion of Nurgle at this point, and instead of being helpful, Gunnlauga and Ingvar are fighting each other. After he eventually stops fighting long enough to look up, Gunnlauga is asked to approximate enemy numbers. His reply, "Thousands. Many, many thousands." Presumably, he struggles to envisage a number higher than 1,000. Hellfire is injured and finally told to go swap with Ingvar. You know, a non-injured Marine who isn't fighting at the moment. Hellfire starts to do what he's told, but then thinks, "So close. I almost did what they told me. By the blood of Russ, what am I turning into?" I know I said this in the White Scars video, but how is it that these guys are more obedient than the Thunder Warriors? They can't spend more than 5 minutes in each other's company without someone wanting to kill someone else, and haven't yet found an order that they didn't immediately countermand. When dealing with a cardinal that was admittedly high on his own supply, Gunnlauga found out that the Canoness, who had been an ally, was now strapped to a penance engine. Rather than listen to the Rune Lord, Najal Stormcaller, the alphiest of alpha wolves, and keep his mouth shut, Gunnlauga immediately draws and activates his Thunderhammer, risking Najal's entire plan. Najal had to freeze him in place with his psychic powers to stop him from killing the Cardinal, who was central to everything. Thunder Warriors obeyed orders better, and they had better tactics. For them to have a Space Wolf with any fucking sense at all, they had to arrange for him to spend over half a century learning from more sensible chapters in the Death Watch. And even then, he was sensible only by comparison. And they won't listen to him anyway. Gunnlauga needed his pack to get onto a planet that was being destroyed by Nurgle, mid-battle, with Ecclesiarchy also after them. So the plan was for 2 Marines to take on thousands of cultists and an Alpha Legion Demon Prince, 2 Marines to take on thousands of cultists and multiple squads of well-trained Ecclesiarchy troops, and capture a prisoner alive. Then all 4 to get back to their lander, with a prisoner in tow, and get that back to their ship. Their lander needed to fight through chaos, air and space superiority. Their ship in orbit was a rubbish old one that they'd managed to steal, but the Space Marine at the helm had to, somehow, survive against overwhelming odds whilst waiting for them. Oh, and the young Bloodclaw decided to pop over to the Ecclesiarchy ship to take them all on by his bloody self. All this whilst one of their number suffered through what was either a rise in psychic power that was going to kill him, or a Nurgle infection. The level of plot armour required to survive this is insane, as was the plan. The ends do not justify the means when the means are this fucking insane. They genuinely delayed the mission to save Ragnar Blackmane, their Wolf Lord, because, in part at least, and this is a direct quote, "Jorunda was in a dangerous mood following the destruction of his beloved gunship. Giving him the chance to work off some of that fury had its benefits." So he needed to be allowed to punch things before going to save the most important person in their company. Are they Marines or inmates at a mental health retreat? Hulk has more self-control than these idiots. Hell, when Jorunda dies, Gunnlauga went on a rampage so extreme he didn't notice a fucking Reaver Titan turning up. So not only no self-control, but these master hunters managed to miss an entire bloody Titan. And the pack system is also bloody stupid. Bloodclaws, these new Marines, join together in a pack, and that pack continues through their progression as Bloodclaws get to Grey Hunters and then to Longfangs. Do they add to it as Marines die off? Nope. so the pack gets less and less effective as their Marines get more and more experienced, simply due to attrition. Eventually, they're left with a lone wolf, who will then decide to go be a scout. Think on that a moment. The more skilled a Marine gets, the less effective they become, simply because their squad is dying off. Those skills become more and more wasted, rather than being passed on to the rest of the chapter. The pack in the Esserheim trilogy are treated as a mongrel pack, simply because they didn't follow the usual method and had reinforcements, something that the Space Wolves would, under normal circumstances, never consider. There's loads more I could go into, because the Space Wolves are stupid. So my next 2 videos will go into them even further. The next video will be a shocking expose of the biggest conspiracy the 40k universe has, all centred around the Space Wolves. It is super serious and in no way satirical, and should definitely be taken as canon. Let me know in the comments if you can guess what it is. The one after that, exposing them as the Chaos-aligned Marines that they truly are. The Inquisition is right, there is a lot of evidence. Thanks for watching. I really would recommend the Esserheim trilogy. The ending of the first book in the series feels a little unearned, but that gets addressed quickly in the second. Definitely worth a read. After I finish insulting all the first founding loyalist Marines, I'll rank all the books I read for this series. It's been a very mixed bag so far. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and be careful out there. You don't want Belisarius Cawl using his magic gene wand on you. Oh, and subscribe please.